everybody, and thank you for coming this morning to travel training, PDT. I don't know, some of you have probably been doing this for a while, and some of you may not have ever. Has anybody never filled out a travel form in this room? Okay, and so, or signed one, approved one. So some of us are kind of familiar with this form, and it changed in May of 2021. We had a pretty drastic change to this form, which had a lot of improvements and then also some clunkiness that that we've all worked through. But we're going to go over that today, the process and how to have success filling out the forms, how to do them accurately, thoroughly, hopefully painlessly. The theme today is our taking a trip through the travel forms. And so we're hoping to, we're going to start out with some travel snacks. So I know some of you were very tired when you came in this morning. I'm bribing you a little bit to stay awake through the presentation. But yeah, I was trying to go with the airline theme. So we got some peanuts. And if you don't do peanuts, we have some fruit snacks. But
this is like being on an airplane.
Yes.
You get, but this time you get your choice.
Yeah, right. So I am Jeanette Carte. I'm the administrative assistant or administrative coordinator in the Administrative Services Office. And I am going to be doing the training today with Kim Evans' help, who is, what is your title, Kim? It's financial manager in the controller's office. And Kim is really the expert in all things travel. So while I'm doing the training today, if there's ever a question or about something and you talk to Kim and say, but Jeanette said, Kim's always, you know, and Kim's word is definitely over mine on how things are done. So hopefully we can answer some questions today. Hopefully you can learn something new, discover something new that you didn't know was out there as far as tools for travel. All right. So our training schedule today. There we go. Our training schedule today, we're going to go through the travel authorization form, the travel claim form, the supporting documents that you might attach to each of those forms when you turn them in, and we'll talk about the different tools and resources available as you're filling out the forms. And then we'll go over some frequently asked questions for travel and where you can find those on the website. And if you could hold all questions till the end, if you have questions, please write them down though, because I don't want you to forget them. If there are questions that are asked that would be helpful to everybody, we will add them to the FAQ page on the travel page as we're going. So, all right, so first, travel authorization. I'm going to pull up the travel authorization, and some people brought their laptops. If you have your laptop and you want to go to the, just in the LCSC webpage, search for travel and pull up the forms, you can take a look at, you'll want to download it every single time. Every time you do a travel authorization, every time you do a travel claim, go out to the LCSC website and download a new form. And you're wanting to do that for at least a couple reasons, maybe more, but the most important reason is you don't want to keep using the same form over and over. Sometimes that causes confusion with your unique travel ID. And sometimes you'll have leftover data in the old form from a previous trip and you don't realize it crossed over, and it causes confusion when it gets to the controller's office. So you want that unique travel ID to stay intact, and you want your data to all be accurate when it gets to the controller's office. And one note of interest for the controller's office, in the last 6 months, they have touched probably over 1,000 different documents, and that's maybe 600 travel authorizations, 400 claims. Along with each of those documents are all the supporting documents and all the emails, and so it's a lot for them to keep up with and keep track of. So having that unique travel ID helps them find it quickly to fix things or process things. It also helps in an audit situation to be able to pull up information quickly when it's time to grab those that paperwork. And we also had a full-time person doing just travel who no longer works there as of June 30th. And so we're in the process of replacing that person. And if things are slow, that would be why. If you ever have an emergency with travel, please call 2206 and let them know what's going on if there's ever something urgent so that they can address it right away. So I'm going to pull up the travel authorization, intent to travel form, and see if I can get it up here on the screen. I think I just have to move it. Yep. Okay. Uh-oh. What's it saying? All right, so if some of you have seen this before, you'll notice there's a new red button at the top that says jump to page 3. All the instructions are the first 2 pages on here. And if you haven't read them before, I would highly recommend reading them. There's some things you're agreeing to when you fill out a travel form and when you travel, when you approve somebody else's travel. There's things that you are agreeing to, rules you will follow. There's also things in here, if you don't know how to create a digital signature, there's instructions right here on how to do that, how to process a fillable PDT form. So if you ever have somebody new that's doing this, all the information you need should be right there for instructions and how to get through this. And if you've done it a lot of times and you don't need those instructions, you can just click to the jump to page 3 and start filling out your form. So here, the important thing to note is on your Warrior ID number, it needs to be seven digits long. Some of us have a 5-digit ID number. Some of us have a 6-digit ID number. I don't think anybody has a 7-digit ID number. So, but some people have shorter. It still has to be 7 digits. And so however many digits are in there, like if it's just 6, at the beginning, you're going to want to hit 0 till you can't hit 0 anymore. So if it's 5 numbers, just add as many zeros as you can. It's going to stop you at 7. So just make sure you filled it up as much as it will let you fill it up, and you have 7 digits in that blank. For the email address, when you put that in, if you do it wrong, you forget the U, you say EUD instead of EDU. If you typo that, it's for some reason, you're going to send it and think it's sent, but it's not going to do the auto forward. It has a setting in there where it's going to auto forward to the next level of signatures. If you do any kind of typo in there, it's going to be dead in the water. It will not tell you that it failed. So you're not going to know. So be very sure when you're filling these in that you're being accurate, especially with the email addresses. In these drop downs, you can click on the little box to drop down, or you can just type a N or a Y for yes if you want to be fast about it. And if you do say yes on here, you're going to have to complete Appendix A. And the reason this is important is sometimes you might have students traveling with you, you might have other faculty or staff, and they may be riding in your car or riding with you in your rental car. The controller's office is going to need to know how they might get another travel authorization for that person that rode in your car, and it says they went to Grangeville, but it doesn't say how, and they're going to wonder what happened. So if they can connect the dots that way with who was with who and how you got from point A to point B, it's very helpful. For the travel type, there's in-state travel anywhere in Idaho, adjoining states. We have quite a few adjoining states. If you are in-state or in an adjoining state that touches the state of Idaho, you do not have to have the president sign off on that. But if you are outside of the state or doing international travel, it's mandatory that the president signs off on that travel. So your start date is important. If somebody was leaving today, you're going to want to use a 6-digit, 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, 2 digits for the year, because that's going to be part of your unique travel ID for the start date when it comes time to create that unique travel ID, which will always be that start date of travel and 6 digits and 7 digits of the ID number with zeros in the front to make it 7 digits. So when you get to primary purpose of travel, I'm gonna say student recruitment here. There's two different boxes that you can type information in. You just wanna do a general, recruitment and then travel justification, high school recruiting at ABC event, maybe put a little more detail in there about exactly what you're doing and why. So a general one, a specific one. And I think this helps Kim with audit collection. There's just keywords in there that they're looking for. And so it helps to have that in there in both boxes, explain what you're doing. Primary mode of transportation. If you do college-owned vehicle, college leased vehicle, or a rental vehicle, any of those three that are on a state contract or owned by the state, you're required to have a vehicle use authorization on file. And so you fill out, the form is available online and through the security office, and you bring that form to your supervisor signs off on it and you sign off on it, you bring it to security, and they will send an email saying you have this on file through such and such date. And what I do in my office is because I do travel for a lot of different people, or did, I don't know if I am going to now, but I would have under everybody's name, I would have their file documents, and under their name, I might have, April, May, June, July, August, depending on how much I just have the month that they travel. And I will just drop under their name that vehicle use authorization. So I can grab it for whichever trip they're doing, and I can just attach it right here in the PDF. There's if this isn't open, if your PDF looks like this, you just click on this little arrow right there and click on the paper clip. Can you see that? Yeah. The screen wraps around. I can't see it from here. So you click on that and then attach, and you can go out and find that email that you got from security that says when that vehicle use authorization expired, and you can plug it right in there. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's also down here in general notes. If you see down here in general notes, sometimes I say VUA on, thank you.
I'm trying to get the right one, sorry, bear with me.
On file, and then I'll say expires 7/2025 or something, just so that you know that we've looked at it, because up here there's two boxes. If traveling in a college-owned, rented, or leased vehicle, the vehicle use agreement must be completed. Check to confirm completion. The traveler is supposed to click this box. Not if I'm preparing this for somebody else, I'm not supposed to click that box. And the traveler should not click it for the supervisor. So the chances of this failing as it goes through the different people viewing this and then forgetting to check that box is pretty high. So I think a lot of admins like me tend to check them ourselves and not follow the process, which is, Kim's aware. It's not how it's supposed to happen. But the way I justify this personally is I attach that VUA. I've checked with security. I've verified that it's on file. I have it right there for anybody to look at and confirm. So when the traveler and the supervisor click on that, or when I click on it for them, they can see it right there. I'm not just saying, take my word for it. It's right there.
Jenna, I just want to add to that. We've updated that travel authorization form. So now it is digital with digital signatures and that auto routing.
The vehicle use authorization.
And so those people filling it out and who have put their email addresses, the traveler, their supervisor, they're going to be getting those automatic emails.
Perfect.
Signed form.
Yep.
So that'll be super easy now for record keeping the travelers.
I love that. It's been very helpful. 5 years ago, it wasn't that easy. And even when you called security and wanted it on file, it was digging through paper files sometimes to find what those dates were. So if you choose to click those boxes for anybody other than yourself as the traveler or yourself as the supervisor, make sure that you can see that form is available on file. It covers all of us legally. It's important that we have that addressed, because we should not be sending somebody out in a college-owned vehicle or a leased vehicle if they do not have a valid driver's license. So it's our way of protecting ourselves and the driver, both. So did I cover that one? Okay. Private vehicle used. You don't have to fill anything out there if they're not using it. And if you do, just put the driver's name in there. Again, if somebody's riding with them, then you will want to make a note about who's with them. And even if, well, no, just make a note about what's happening in the details if you need to explain more about that. But if you do, if somebody chooses to take their private vehicle as opposed to taking a rental car and it ends up costing $100 more, we may or may not cover that. And it's gonna be up to the supervisor, and it's gonna depend on why they're taking the personal vehicle. Does it make sense for what they're doing, for what we've asked them to do for their job? Or is it because they wanted to do a side trip and go visit relatives and it's their personal choice? Then there's a section in the form to compare costs for what, down here in Appendix B, cost analysis. You're going to want to say, this is what it would cost for a rental vehicle. This is what it would cost for mileage. Reimbursement will be limited to this amount. And so there's options when you travel. You can do stuff like that if you want to do a side trip, but you might be paying the difference. And that's a discussion between your supervisor and yourself when you're traveling, how you want to do that. And so if you're filling this out for somebody else, you don't have to make that call. You can let the supervisor in the truck, they'll be looking at it, they'll be signing it, they can make that call. You don't have to if you're doing the travel for somebody else. So down here, you're just going to put the miles traveled. And if you are using on the website, I'll show you later when we get into tools, there's predetermined set miles. I think Coeur d'Alene is 119 one way. If you're using what's actually on that schedule that I'll show you when we get down to tools, you do not have to attach a Google Maps. You don't have to write down your odometer reading when you left and when you returned. You don't have to document in any way. If it's on that form, that's the state mileage between point A and point B on the chart, then you don't need additional documentation. So it's kind of nice if you do it that way. It's less paperwork you have to deal with. So down here for per diem, lodging estimate, make sure you get everything in there that you think might be an expense on the trip. Other estimate, that's often if there's going to be a parking expense or some other incidental that might come up that you don't know ahead of time. You're going to a city you're not familiar with and you're not sure what parking will be like or what other things might come up. So that's where you might put $20 or whatever the circumstance might warrant. So on the cost center, whatever cost center that you use for travel, you're going to want to click this drop-down menu for any grant cost center listed. You need to click yes or no. If you're not using a grant, don't just skip that question. Do click no. We need to know you saw it and that you are clarifying that it's not a grant. Because if it is a grant, we add an additional line of signatures, and there could be rules associated with that grant that limit how much you can spend on different parts of the travel. And we're going to have to look at it a lot more closely for where the payment comes to reimburse you for this trip, and possibly not all out of the grant funds if there are limits. On the travel advance request, this changed, I believe, about a year ago. It has to be a minimum of $100 that you would need as a travel advance, and it's going to be 75% of what the expense would be. So if you were expecting to have out-of-pocket costs of $100, you would get $75 as a travel advance. If your out-of-pocket expenses were only going to be $75, you would not be eligible for a travel advance. The reason for the 75% is just hopefully you don't come back and have to pay money back to the college, because nobody wants to do that after a trip. So that 75%, if anything, your per diem doesn't come out as high as you thought it would, or mileage didn't end up being as much as you thought it would, you won't end up having to pay back. So again, when you're down here in the signatures, you're going to want to be very accurate. Double check this, triple check this. You're going to want to make sure that everything is, the emails especially, are how you want them to progress to the next person. So for the who signs these, you always will have the traveler sign and the immediate supervisor. If the immediate supervisor is not a division chair, a director, a VP, or the president, the the next level up. Next level approver will be that person. And a cabinet member, since COVID, there's a new rule where cabinet members must always sign travel authorizations. They always have to sign and say whether this is an essential travel or not. And I don't know how long we're gonna hang on to that rule, but that's the rule as of May of 2021, and it's ongoing. So there is a list of cabinet members. I'll get into that too on the tools. It's also on the frequently asked questions. Because these emails, if it's a dean or a VP or a president, you're not going to use, like I'm not going to use Julie Cray's email address in there. I'm going to use VP Finance Admin at lcsc.edu, and I'm not going to use, who else do I know? President, for the president, you're going to, which is cabinet member, you would do president approvals at lcsc.edu. So anybody at that level who's a cabinet member, it's not going to be a personal email. You're going to put in that general email for the department. And part of the reason is if they're out and they have delegated somebody else to sign on their behalf, nobody's going to see the email if it goes to the person who's not there to sign. So it's going to help with efficiency, and it also helps put more eyes on that document so it can get signed faster. And then this is all, this page here is strictly for the controller's office. This is, when you see this filled out with the unique travel ID, and it's signed by somebody in the controller's office, you're good to go. It has been fully approved and you are now authorized to travel. I have seen at times, and Kim, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I've seen at times when I've done travel where this unique travel authorization ID did not populate correctly. And if that ever happens, always stick to the rule that it's a 6-digit date for the first date of travel, and that 7-digit ID number. That is always going to be the unique ID for any travel. So use that when you go to your travel claim. It is the first day of travel and your unique ID, the staff ID of the traveler. Correct? Yes. Okay, because for Adobe does weird things sometimes. Okay, and on this page you have other travelers. Sometimes you might not know the warrior IDs, and it might take forever to look them all up. I've never had anybody complain when I've done this, but sometimes I don't put those in there if I don't know them. But see if I spell this right. I was trying to do it. Is that how you spell Barney Rubble? And Fred Flintstone. And then Bam Bam. And they're probably going to take a private vehicle because that would destroy the rental. So you're going to say in here, I don't go look up the exact title. You could say professional or classified. And then, so that's what we're looking for there. We want to be able to locate who that person is. If you do the warrior ID, we're golden. We know exactly who's traveling with you. If it's a student, we might not have that information available, especially if you're taking high school kids on a field trip and they don't have an ID number. So anyway, put what you can in there to help the controller's office figure out what's going on with this trip. So really on the travel authorization, the only thing that you might attach here is if there's any special circumstances or if the vehicle use authorization. And that's optional. That's not required. It's something we do just to protect myself because I'm clicking boxes I'm not supposed to click, saying the traveler and the supervisor approved it. So if you feel that way too, and you want to cover your bases and make sure everything's in place, it's really nice to have that document and just stick it in there and everybody knows they are authorized to rent that vehicle. They are authorized to drive the state vehicle. All right. I said questions at the end, but are there any questions on travel authorizations? Yes.
Do we still need an email for dual credit travel approval to visit?
What we were requiring for COVID was that we required the high school to provide an email saying it was okay for the faculty members would go to the high school.
Could you actually email that question to CO Travel? Yeah,
Well, actually, that's more of a dual credit question. You guys supplied us with that, and you guys told whoever you guys are, the dual credit, told us not to accept the travel or claim or advance unless we had that dual credit authorization. We were asked to watch for that by your guys' department.
sounds
So
like it might be up to you.
right now, we're still looking for dual, for high school authorization because of the fact that we were told to watch for it.
Wasn't that COVID related though?
Yeah.
I believe it was, but we have not been told that has changed.
Was there another question? Yes.
How do you know if, when, or if your vehicle use agreement has expired?
The email that you received, I'm gonna pull that up so you can see exactly what it looks like. Oh, maybe I am. No, I didn't network that drive on here. When you get the email from security, it says right on there, it says this person is authorized to drive. It's beautiful. It says everything you need to know, and it's very official, and says this person's authorized, has their name. And it says this expires on, and it will have a month and a year. And they're good for three years, I think. The vehicle use authorizations are supposed to be updated every 3 years. So it'll have the date right on there.
Are we alerted when it expires?
No.
I heard annually, but I have not seen the terms.
Ashley, do you know if it's 3 years or annually? I think it's 3 years.
So there was two different year, one of them was 1 year and the other one was 3 years, and it differentiated between students.
I know
Staff,
some I've received say they expire in 2025, so I'm pretty sure.
3 years for faculty and staff.
I'm pretty sure it's 3 years.
okay, 3 years for faculty and staff, 1 year for IH, non-employees and students.
Oh, okay, there you go. 1 year for IH, non-employees and students. Yes.
So IH have to have that even though they don't use
No.
this form?
No, nobody has to have this, nobody, unless you rent a vehicle or you drive a state vehicle, then absolutely you have to have this. Anybody driving a state vehicle or renting a state leased vehicle has to have the vehicle use authorization. But if you're not driving those vehicles, no, don't worry about it. And yes, back row.
Does the adjoining states include Idaho?
Idaho's in-state. So there's an option for just in-state if you're just in Idaho.
Right, so I have recruiters who travel to Idaho, Washington, Oregon.
So that'd be adjoining. The furthest
They
out.
do all of them.
Yeah, that's okay.
Including Idaho.
Yeah, that's okay. Go the furthest out. So you can only click one of those.
Right.
So if they're doing Idaho and adjoining states, click on adjoining states. If they're doing Idaho, adjoining states, and outside of that, click on outside. So the furthest away you are, use that, because that's gonna determine signatures. Yep. And yes.
So in the vehicle use agreement, it's approved for 3 years, but if somebody loses their license the second year of it, it wouldn't be a very good idea, like, and I didn't know that, it wouldn't be a very good idea for me to be clicking those off and saying the vehicle use agreement is.
Yeah, that's a little bit out of our control, and we would hope that if that happened to somebody, they'd be honest about it and let us know, because they shouldn't be. I mean, if somebody would know they lost their license, they would be acting very unethically, continuing to drive a vehicle. So we'd have kind of bigger issues there.
So we'd still be fine for taking that off.
We have done our due diligence to make sure this driver is authorized and able to drive according to the state, and we've, yes, Ashley.
The policy states that if you are going to be operating a vehicle but you've lost your license, it's your responsibility to let the college know.
Yeah.
And technically, we could check the license again.
Yeah,
Policy, but
yeah, that would be a lot of work to do that every few months, but yeah, it could happen, but we do the best we can. Okay, Leila, me.
In-state, out-of-state, there's also one for vicinity. Are we supposed to be using that for specific places?
That's
or
a
do we
different
just-
type of
Okay.
travel authorization, and we can talk about that. There's different types of travel authorization. There's just you're going to a conference, you're going to a recruiting event, you're going to a one-time thing. Vicinity travel is a special kind of travel authorization that's good for up to 3 months. You can have 90 days on that. And what that is for, I'll use IT as an example. They have people going to Grangeville and Orofino and to Moscow, to the Adult Learning Center. They're going downtown to Center for Arts. They're driving all over. They don't have a state vehicle. They don't have a vehicle at their disposal to go do those trips when the Wi-Fi's down or computer needs to be replaced. So they're driving their personal vehicles to do all this work, or up to STC. And the networking guys too, they're all doing this in their personal vehicles. So they can have a 90-year vicinity, or 90 day. Yes.
Vicinity is specifically within 20 miles of Lewiston, Idaho's LCSU campus.
Right. So you can't
It does
go.
not count to go to Grangeville. It does not count to go to Moscow. It's within 20 miles of this physical campus.
Right.
Then you can do a 90 days. So say some people run up to the CTE building 5 times a month. Well, they could do a 90-day and with the vicinity, and then turn in their mileage for those 15 trips.
Right.
Instead of turning in 3 different forms. That saves me time, that saves you time.
And you don't want to turn in a form for $10. That's a big waste of everybody's. It costs more to deal with that paperwork. And one more thing about vicinity with the 20 miles, the other type of travel authorization would be the 1 month blanket travel. That would be for when you're going to those outreach centers outside of that 20 miles. That's only good for 30 days. But you could turn in 1 claim at the end of those 30 days to cover all of that running around to places that are beyond, but it would have to be in the state of Idaho.
It's supposed to be in the state.
Yeah, so that would be the Grangeville, Orofino, Coeur d'Alene, but if you're going beyond that, and that's not the use for the blanket authorization. And we had a question back here, and then,
How far in advance are we supposed to send the authorization?
you need it fully signed and approved prior to the first day of travel. That being said, my comfort level is 2 or 3 weeks ahead of travel. Working in IT, sometimes I got to work at 8 a.m. and they were already off working because the system was down and they had to go. So you want to get it in and fully signed. If that happens the day of, because there was an emergency, it happens the day of, we just do the best we can with the circumstances. But I like to, I mean, if people know they're going to a conference, if they can let you know a month ahead of time, and sometimes if they're flying or have to pay registration, there's expenses being incurred that need to get approved. So you really want to encourage people to get that in as soon as they know something's happening so that they can start paying for those expenses. Well, with it being approved. And one more, and then we're going to move on.
So in the past, we'd always done the blanket travel for dual credit because we travel to all the high schools in the region. But we also have Washington schools that we go to that are outside of the 20 mile for the vicinity or anything like that. So does that mean we've been doing it wrong and we should have been submitting individually every time we go to a Washington school and do those separately?
Where you guys do this routinely, we've kind of built that because this happens all the time. We kind of built that into that acceptance level.
Okay.
If a different department were to do it, we'd probably ask them for an adjoining state.
Okay.
But you guys do it routinely, so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, because it's coming up, that I do it correctly.
With the timing on the travel advance, at a minimum, it has to be received by our office prior to the date of travel. That's the minimum. Right now, we're behind a little bit, so we mark the travel advances as of the date we receive the email. However, if the email is not accepted, you do not have a valid travel advance and we have to do a whole bunch of more steps. So, but at a minimum, we need it the day before you leave.
Good questions. I'm glad you're here. I don't know anything about dual credit travel. So we're going to move on to the travel claim now. And again, with the travel claim, I said travel claim for the win. We want to touch this document one time. We want to send it off and it gets approved and then sent off and approved, and we don't want to see it again. So there's a lot of check boxes, there's text boxes, there's yes or no questions. You want to make sure you're going through that form and proofing it very closely, making sure your email addresses are correct. Making sure all your documentation is attached. Any questions that might be asked have been answered. Sometimes there's emails that transpire about changes in travel between the travel authorization and the travel claim because things come up. Send those emails to whatever supervisor is involved and just let them know this happened, is this approved? And when they respond with you're gonna put that email right in there. You're gonna attach it right to that document and make sure that everything is explained, especially if things don't go how it was planned. So I'm gonna pull up the travel claim. And if you have your computer, you can do that also. And again, pull original one every single time, pull that original document from the website. So again, it has to jump to page 3. One thing that's important about page 3 is that is right here, it says print page 3 of this form. That is the page that you, when you jump to page 3, that's the page you're gonna print to attach original receipts to. The only time you would not attach original receipts is if there was something paid by a P card. That original receipt will stay with the P card in the department where the P card is. But otherwise, all original receipts are going to get attached to that. If you have a digital receipt that is attached within the PDF, you don't have to waste paper and print that out. The goal is to get everything to the controller's office that they need to verify the expenses for your trip. If you've attached it and it's a digital original, like it came in an email or the airlines sent you a PDF, use that and put it in there digitally. But if you have a gas receipt that came out of the gas pump machine, you're gonna send that with this page 3 to the controller's office, unless it was on a P card. So on this one, there's instructions in here when you get to the unique travel ID, 6 digits for the first day of travel, followed by 7 digits for the staff ID number. And there's an example there. This is something that over probably the past year, it has not been consistent, and it's created quite a headache for the controller's office in audit situations and just in day-to-day life trying to manage these forms and find them because there's been all kinds of different travel IDs that have been on these forms. So this is something that's going to start being enforced. So if they receive a document that doesn't have that right number, it's an opportunity for it to come back and have to get corrected and go back again. And we're trying to avoid those kind of delays so we can all touch it once and be done. That's ideal. Again, it's gonna ask some of the same questions. So I highly recommend, like, is there one traveler or more traveler? It may have changed since the travel authorization. We do want that information gathered again, but I highly recommend anytime you do a travel claim, pull up that travel authorization on your computer. A lot of it, the information can just be copied over. You don't have to recreate the wheel, but we do need you to put it in there again. And on the Warrior Staff ID, again, it's not going to let you do more than 7 digits. So just make sure you fill that up completely with as many zeros at the front as you need to fill in that space. This is all repeated information through here, your travel type, destination, purpose. So just have that travel authorization up there so you can just copy that over. You have to fill out this again with the traveler and supervisor checking the boxes. So I attached that vehicle use authorization email confirmation. I just attach it in there again. It's just right over here on the paper clip. And I will end up with sometimes 10 different documents over here attached to my travel claim with just the emails, the receipts, if somebody went to a conference, you put in the itinerary for their conference, and they do look at that because if lunch is provided every day, we're not reimbursing per diem for that lunch if it was provided at the conference because we paid for the conference and that the funds were already paying for that lunch. So there could be a lot of attachments on this one for documents. So one thing I do want to note on the travel claim, as you're doing this, you'll see it says private vehicle use no, standard mileage rate yes. I need to work on that default to get it back to no, and I haven't done that yet, but if it says yes, that Adobe form is looking for more information, and if there was no personal mileage used, sometimes that trips it up, and you'll get a fail at the end because you said there was standard mileage rate, but then you didn't put in mileage. So just make sure these all say no if you didn't use them. If you did use a private vehicle, you're gonna have to talk to the traveler and get their license plate number. And another thing I do is keep on the travel, on my digital documents where I have the traveler's name and the dates they travel, where I keep all of these documents. I have a cheat sheet for what people's license plates are. If they're driving, in nursing, there was quite a few people that they're doing clinical visits and they're traveling all the time in their personal vehicle. I keep that license plate number on file with that person's name so that I can just plug it in without asking them every time. So when you get down to, I'm gonna go touch this very briefly, but non-standard mileage, I doubt anyone in here will ever have to use that. That comes into play if a supervisor wants to limit the mileage reimbursement, or if a grant limits the mileage reimbursement. That's the one time you would use that. It does not come up very often. If it does and you have questions, just call the controller's office and ask, but that's rare. And the standard mileage rate did increase just recent July 1st to 62.5 cents per mile. And the form has been updated, which is another good reason just to download a new form every time for changes like that. You don't have to worry about when they happen. We'll just fix it. And if you grab the new form, you'll always have the right information. For lodging, if you didn't do, if there was no lodging expense, please click no, don't just skip it. If you did have lodging in there, just fill out that information. The total will populate down below with your total of your expenses. On per diem, you can fill out this form, or you can use a per diem calculator that's available on the controller's website, on the travel website, to fill this out. And if you do that, if you attach a per diem calculator with this information instead of putting it in here, and I did that recently with somebody who had a whole month of nursing clinical visits, and it did not fit in here. And so I grabbed that calculator off the website. I added a lot of lines and put them all in there, because you have to have the start date. Every day that they travel, you have to have when they left, when they returned. And so I just put in here, see attached, whatever. I just, the form isn't really meant for that. And then for whatever the total per diem was, I just put a number over there and it says see attached. And that way it populates in here for the sake of the form. And I'm going to put that mileage calculator over on the side so they can see all the detail. So again, the budget code and the grant, yes or no, if you used a grant. And on this screen here, this is another one where you're going to want to be really careful to prove, because not everything auto populates. I think it's which one is it? Vehicle mileage, maybe. One of them doesn't automatically come down. So do double check that all of your expenses got dropped down in here. If you have a vehicle rental and somebody paid for that with a P card, so we have $100 vehicle rental, you're going to put 100 over here in the P card column, and that's going to zero that out, so we know we don't pay that back to the traveler because it was already paid for with state funds. If it was direct billed to the college, you put it over here. And again, that because the net due to traveler down here, you don't want it calculating to pay them back if they didn't pay for it out of pocket. If they rented a vehicle and had fuel costs, you'll put that in there. And if it was out of pocket, you just leave it there and that will go back to them. So you can see your total travel cost here is going to be more than the traveler gets back if some of these expenses were P card or direct billed. Prepaid checks, that might be like if you have a registration cost of $300 and it was paid with a PO, just put that 300 in there, and down down in your cost explanation, just say registration. Okay, typo. Registration 300, PO number 8460, you know. So just put that in there for a reference so we know we have all of the costs for this particular travel right here in one place, and we know what it was and how it was paid for and how much the traveler needs to get reimbursed. Sometimes the third party funds part of it or pays registration or something like that. So that's where you would add that information. If you say yes, some more boxes will pop up where you can write that information in there. And then here again with the signature lines, I just really want to emphasize, make sure the emails are correct. And I'm gonna not do questions yet because we are running out of time. I want to show you some tools and resources real quick because those are super important. The vehicle use authorization, your receipts. When a traveler leaves, make sure that they know they need to be collecting all of those receipts. If they lose one, it's very difficult to reimburse them. I've had people attach like their bank statement, a picture of their bank statement that shows they had a $30 baggage fee because they don't have the receipt for that baggage fee. We're not required to reimburse that if there's no receipt. So it's up to whoever is approving that if they allow that to go through or not. So it's very important for the traveler to protect themselves to make sure all those receipts are intact. And we do our best to get people reimbursed for all of their expenses. We don't want people to have to pay out of pocket for doing their job. So I'm going to go to the website and show you the most important tool. And I always just type, you could do travel or controller's office. But out here is where the most important resources are going to be. Quick travel information. You have all the forms are here that you need. The policy is there. The cabinet members that you need to sign off. You can see who is the person that you report to in your chain of command for what department or division, and you can sign off on these forms is right there for you. The per diem, this is where the per diem calculator is. And like any form that you come across on our website, always download it first before you fill it in for it to work accurately. Once you download it and it's in Excel, you can add extra lines here, just insert more lines if you need to. Federal per diem website. And I had a quick example here. If you are traveling to Washington State and you're going to, I'm going to put Washington right here, and you're going to Lacey, Washington. Lacey, Washington is in Thurston County, which is right here. Oh, this is the lodging. I'm going to go down. This is meals and incidentals is what you want. So for Lacey, Washington, it's in Thurston County, but over under the city name, it says Olympia and Tumwater. Lacey is not listed anywhere as a city in this chart. If that is the case, you have to use the standard rate for that state. So the standard rate here is $59 for meals and incidentals if you go to Lacey, Washington. If you happen to go to Olympia and it's listed there, then your rate is going to be $74 a day for meals and incidentals. So as a traveler or as an approver, as an admin who's filling these out for other people, that's important to know. So that you're estimating that amount correctly for how much they will be reimbursed.
And if you use a different rate like this, please attach it. That will save us a lot of time and 3 or 4 emails back and forth trying to figure out how you came up with that number.
Yep. Okay. So there was the government per diem controllers. And then the other thing is the frequently asked questions. We are building this list right now. If you go, this is the quick travel information on the travel controllers website. We do have frequently asked questions, and some of the ones you've asked today might land on this page, but You can peruse through that if, oh, and then also on this page here, I'm gonna make this bigger so you can see it. These are all those generic emails for VPs and presidents and division chairs and deans. So if you're putting one of these cabinet members, these emails are under the FAQs on the website for what you should put in there instead of an individual's email for approval. So there's a lot of tools and a lot of things out there at your disposal. And if somebody is new to this, I highly recommend reading those first 2 pages on both the travel authorization and the travel claim, so you know what is expected, either as the person filling out the form, as the traveler, or the approver. Read those at least once, just so that you know what is expected. And so we went over facts. We are to questions and answers, and I just showed you that. The what if a form isn't working, that's often an email issue, a typo in an email. But sometimes somebody's off campus and needs to sign this and they can't because of their computer situation, or they don't have a computer. Sometimes there's a situation where somebody cannot sign that form and make it automatically go forward. In that situation, there's different options. Have them email you approval to sign on their behalf, and you can sign for them, but you're going to have to attach that documented approval that they said you could do that. Or you can, well, and even if you do that, you can force, if their email is not causing it to auto forward because they're off campus and something weird's going on, just send a regular email, just force it forward. Do what you need to do to get those signatures and approvals on their way. And you might have to babysit it a little more to make sure it goes all the way through, but do what you need to do to get it through. And the claim should be submitted. I would highly recommend doing it within 5 to 10 days. You wait longer than that and receipts get lost and things get forgotten, and it gets more challenging to put that document together and get approvals. I don't know if we have a way out deadline where it's like, nope, you can't turn it in anymore. I think it's 3 months.
Yeah, it's 3 months for that. If you have a travel advance associated with it, it's 14 days.
Yeah, and that's
upon return.
Yeah.
That's because we've already fronted you money. So within 14 days, that's supposed to be submitted.
okay. So we've reached the end and we have 5 minutes. So are there, one question over here.
When completing like the travel claim following your trip, is there anything different, or where would you include the like advance that you got?
There's a box on the summary page. On the page where it says all your expenses, on the right-hand side, on the bottom, there's a box that says, did you receive a travel advance? And that's where you get to that.
Any other questions? Yes.
So, just to clarify, if I were to travel to Post Falls, which is in Kootenai County, for the meals and incidental, I would only get the Idaho state, I wouldn't get the Kootenai County rate?
Correct. Anywhere in Idaho, no matter where you are, it's $55 a day.
Okay, what about out-of-state travel? If the city is within that county, are you just getting?
Oh, no,
states?
for Idaho, that doesn't matter. Idaho, you don't have to look up those rates. Anything in the state of Idaho will always be $55.
Okay, so for out-of-state travel.
Anywhere, even the adjoining states, yeah, you're gonna be looking up the per diem.
Okay, so you gave the example that Lacey is in Thurston. We can't use the Thurston County.
No,
rate?
you cannot, because Lacey's not listed as the city. It's a weird rule. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, I was curious because I was looking at the GSA website and it says that if the county is listed, we can go.
Oh, but that's government. That's federal.
Okay.
We're state. So it's different policy, different rules. And it is weird. But if the city is not listed there, we have to use the standard. Except Idaho, you don't even have to look it up. Anywhere in Idaho, it's $55. So that's, yeah.
In CTE, we require them to also include the travel authorization to their travel claim.
Yes.
And I don't know if everybody else does that or not.
It's helpful.
We've had that conversation because I don't know if Jeff's supposed to sign as the cabinet member because they went over, you know, the
Oh, if it is
whatever dollar amount or
Yeah.
percent, you know what I mean? And I'm
25,
digging back, trying to find the claim to see what was authorized versus what they have on there.
attach the travel authorization to the travel claim. Just do the PDF attach with the paperclip, put it in there. If it's 25% more, if the claim goes over by 25% or $150, you do need a cabinet member to sign, or the next level up. It's a supervisor and a next level higher to sign off. Otherwise, on the travel claim, if you're within what you expected the cost to be and you don't exceed the 25% or 150, just the traveler and the supervisor, chair. If the supervisor is not a chair or a director. So you need just the traveler and the chair or director to sign and you're done. If the
Attaching the
supervisor,
travel authorization isn't required. It's not required to attach to the travel claim, but it never hurts and it always expedites things.
right? It's not gonna get declined if it's not there, but it will save time.
It gets declined in my office if it's not there.
Good for you.
Oh.
Like that.
Send it back. It's not-
Makes it easy.
I'm not gonna dig around out in 500 travel authorizations trying. to
Yeah, we have
find-
our federal and our state and then our CTE roles.
Yeah. They're always thought.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions?
I will say, guys, right now, because I did lose my assistant on June 30th, everything through June 30th was caught up. From July 1st forward, because we just closed year end last week. I've got more than a couple emails. I'm going through all the authorizations and guaranteeing that the people that are requesting advances are gonna get those. We're gonna start on the bottom, first come, first serve, and we're gonna go back up and start approving the travel authorizations as of the date that we received them. And after we get through all the travel authorizations, we're gonna start going through the travel claims. If this is creating an issue with somebody in your area, I do have a couple emails that says, hey, we really need you to get on this specific person. So I'm gonna try to get that done, but it was just yesterday that year end was closed for the first day, so we're trying to catch up.
Again, if you had a claim submitted before June 30th,
It's already been paid.
Okay.
To my knowledge, it's up, because we might have received it if we received it between 1 and 5 o'clock on June 30th, it may not be paid, but I think there's only one of those. I think that's one of the questions that I got.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You did a great job.
I was.
Can I have to make an appointment? And